minasan konbanwa. And for all of those people joining us from Japan, ohayo gozaimasu, right? So thank you so much for joining us today for our very special webinar on J-pop inside Japanese pop music with Dr. Capital. So my name is Yoshi Domoto. I am the Executive Director of the Japan America Society of Georgia, and so thrilled to have so many people with us this evening or this morning if you're from Japan. So thank you very much for joining us. Before we get started, just want to thank a couple of our sponsors through the Gen J program. We would like to thank support from the Japan Foundation and also the Center for Global Partnership, or CGP. And we are so thrilled to have you all with us today with our special webinar. But before we introduce Dr. Capital, we just want to let you know that we'll go into a presentation mode. And then in about 45 minutes, we'll open up a Q&A session, which we will actually bring everyone into our webinar room, and we can see and interact with Dr. Capital live. But without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Capital. So Dr. Capital has been studying and performing J-pop for the past 25 years and is also an assistant professor of commercial music in the Division of Jazz Studies at the University of North Texas College of Music. So, but without further ado, let's introduce Dr. Capital. Dr. Capital Sensei, どうぞよろしくお願いします。
Hello, everybody. I'm talking to you from Japan, so it's morning for me, but I know it's nighttime for you, or maybe you're someplace else in the world and it's like 3 a.m. for you. I feel for you. Thank you for joining me from wherever you are. I'm going to dive just kind of right in and show you some stuff, and we're going to listen to a lot of music and talk about some things that make Japanese pop music special and wonderful. And then I really look forward to your questions later on. The reason why I became interested in Japanese pop music is because when I was a kid, we had some Japanese exchange students come and stay with us who were just studying, in the U.S. I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and I connected with those students. I was really young, and so they were like 13, 14, or high school age, and I was like 9 or 10, and I just thought they were super cool. The way they looked, the way they acted, the way they talked, it was super cool. And of course they had music too, and so they started sharing some pop music with me, and it was all stuff, of course, that I had never heard, because when we're living in the US, we don't hear anything on the radio other than English mostly, and some Spanish if we're listening to the right stations, but we basically don't get access to the music of the non-English speaking world. And so I thought it was really fresh and new, but I had no idea just how big and deep it was. And I want to give you a sense of that right now. I'm going to share a PowerPoint and we'll talk through some stuff. So, is this working? Okay, cool. Okay, great. So, okay. Japanese pop music, also called J-pop. I've talked to a lot of people recently, and I asked them, what do you think the biggest music market is in the world? And a lot of times people guess correctly that it's the North American, the US music market. And then I say, what's the second biggest? And most people recently say K-pop, because K-pop is kind of blowing up and has some exposure in the US market right now, and it's super awesome. But everybody is surprised when I tell them that actually, it's Japan. These are the newest statistics we have from the IFPI, which is sort of the international agency that keeps track of this. The world market, this is quite a small graph here, but it's showing that the world market of music is about $20.2 billion per year, or that's what it was last year, I should say. You can see that from 2001, it kind of has dipped down as people started doing free downloading and stopped buying CDs. But in the last years, because of all the paid downloading, it's going up again. So the music market, if you want to grow up and be a musician, never fear. You're going to be poor, but you'll be a little richer than you were last year as a musician. Anyway, out of the 20 billion worldwide music market, Japan is almost 3 billion, 2.82 billion of that. And it's a bigger market than the UK. So if you think about all the British artists that we know and love, the Japanese market is bigger than what they have going on in the UK, and Germany and France and every other country in the world other than the US. So it's a huge market. I had no idea. So then the next question I think you might be asking is, yeah, but that just means they're buying a lot of music. Maybe that's because they're buying a bunch of Ed Sheeran and, you know, Beyonce albums, and that's why they have the second biggest market in the world. And I'd like to share this graph with you, which shows you a few of these, you know, individual types of recordings that get sold, like CDs or CD singles, for instance. These are different graphs. But what you can see on all of these, if you look over at 2019, is there's a big bar and a small bar for each of them. The big bar are the Japanese artists, and the small bar are the international artists. So this shows you that of all the billions of dollars that are being spent on music in Japan, second biggest market in the world, over 90% of the music that they're buying are Japanese artists. And you're like, whoa, who are they buying? You know, we've never heard of any of these artists, but they're literally like outselling people like Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars in the market over here. There's a lot of places you can go to explore. I'm going to shift in a couple minutes to YouTube and online to show you some stuff, but I'll keep my screen share on this PowerPoint for a couple minutes here just to kind of give an overview of what I want to do for the next 30 minutes or so. So I have three links here, and I think we'll make this PowerPoint available to everyone so that you can click on these links. I've got a PDF version of the PowerPoint I'd be happy to share with everyone. But the first one is the Oricon ranking. This is sort of like the Japanese music industry's Billboard charts, you know. They just rank the top-selling singles. And so if you ever want to see what's going on in Japanese music, this is a great website to click on, and you can just see, you know, who's number one through whatever this week on singles, on albums. This would give you a really great window into the current week in Japanese popular music, and then you could go and search on YouTube or something for these artists. You can listen to them in there, so it's pretty awesome. Then I created a playlist that I'm going to walk through with you guys and show you a bunch of videos, and this playlist I'm sharing in the PDF also, so you can go back and watch the videos. I've got about 30 videos in there. Obviously, you know, we're going to talk, and I'm not going to show you 5-minute songs 30 times. So, but I encourage you to watch all the 5-minute songs in that playlist. So you can do that. And then I have a YouTube channel. On my YouTube channel, what I do is I pick a Japanese song that I really like, and then I kind of deconstruct the music of it. Like I'll talk about what chords they use or what melodies they use and why it enhances the expressive qualities of the music. It's kind of like, you know, dive inside of the song, and then I do a cover version of it. Of course, I want you to watch my YouTube channel because, you know, it will be fun for me if I gain you as a fan, and we can kind of share that. But also, one of the reasons why I do this whole thing is just because I think Japanese music is so cool and I want to share it. And so I think if you watch my YouTube channel, there's about 30 songs or so up there too, and I would hope that you would learn a little bit about the song and then go check out the original version of the artist, so you can kind of, like, you know, find more Japanese artists that way. So there's going to be kind of two things I would like to talk about today. Some overarching themes and cultural reasons why J-pop is special and successful, and then some musical reasons, like inside the music itself. So let's talk a little bit about these, and then I'm going to switch over to YouTube and show you a bunch of videos to show you these points. So the first thing I want to mention is that Japanese pop music, the whole you know, industry, I mean, Japanese society really kind of functions on we're all in this together kind of ethos. It's really driven by empathy. You go out on the street and there'll be a sign that says, "Don't litter, a child might see you," instead of the sign saying, "Don't litter, $1,071 minimum statutory fine." So, you know, the society kind of runs on people thinking, oh, we're all a family and anything that I do affects other people, and kind of vice versa. So anyway, the music making is also something that everybody does as a community. And I'm going to show you some videos of this, but the first thing that I have written here, ongakusai. It's very common to have a music festival concert kind of thing as a school, whether you're an elementary school or a junior high or a high school, and to take it really serious. When I was a kid, you know, we would have concerts at my school, but it wasn't like we would rent an amazing opera hall and do it with like high production and it was more like we would just be in the gym at my high school playing our out of tune flutes, you know, then like our parents would show up, and it was not, you know, like a real formal production. But in Japan, all the elementary schools, even, you know, the kids are getting up there and singing for each other as a group. And I'm going to show you this, but you'll just see that from a really young age, people are involved in a lot of music making. Of course, karaoke, you know, we all know what karaoke is, but it's one of the things, I think, again, that kind of drives people's love of music is just the fact that they're participating in it all the time. And then one of the kinds of bands that is the top selling bands are idol bands. I'm going to show you some, like AKB48, for example. And those bands are actually recruited, the members of those bands are recruited just from, you know, the general public. Like, you can apply to try to audition for those bands. And thousands of people do. Thousands and thousands and thousands do. And you actually get voted into the group by the fans. So even like literally the people who are the stars are sometimes just like you and me. You'll find in Japan that music is just valued very highly. And so as a society, for instance, you know, the thing that everybody does on New Year's Eve is watch like a 3 or 4 hour long concert. It's not just some musical guests and then a show with a bunch of other stuff. Like, the whole point of the New Year's Eve event is a big epic concert of all the stars. And they don't have Grammy Awards in Japan, but Kohaku, this concert every New Year's, is really kind of like the pinnacle of success as a musician in Japan. I have not been on there yet, but I hope to soon. And it's just kind of like always strikes me how, you know, just like nationwide, that's the thing that kind of people celebrate more than anything else. At the most sacred kind of holiday time, it's like, what are we doing? We're all singing, we're all celebrating artistry. And then just from my personal experience, I can tell you playing music in Japan professionally is really cool because there are so many concert venues. I happen to play a lot of like Brazilian jazz music, and I remember when I was in LA, you know, there are a couple of places that you can go and hear Brazilian jazz concerts. Not every night. There's of course like some churrascaria, like barbecue places where sometimes there might be some background music, but not like concerts. You can't go and listen to live Brazilian music every single night. Well, I mean, with COVID it's a little different, but in Tokyo there's like at least 10 places I can think of off the top of my head where you can go listen to live Brazilian jazz every night. And that's not the only thing. You can go probably listen to flamenco every night or bluegrass every single night. There's just a lot of music venues that are small. So just like music is in the air and all around us, and it's an exciting place to be making music. Okay, I'll skip through these next through real fast so that I can then go over to YouTube and show you examples of all these. You'll find with Japanese music that the mixing of the styles, like mixing heavy metal with bubblegum pop, or mixing kind of like a country sensibility with a whatever sensibility is very free. And a lot of times in the US, you know, you get people saying things like, that's not real blues, or those guys are posers, that's not real metal, or I hate pop music, it's so lame. But in Japan, you know, literally you can mix all of those things together and nobody accuses you of being like, you know, inauthentic. So there's total freedom of the styles, and it's pretty exciting, some of the styles that get created with that. And then you'll see that there's a lot of things that we might look at initially and say, oh, they're copying the American style. But then if you look at Japanese musical roots, you see that like actually they've got cultural roots in Japan too. And there's just sort of a synergy between like American blues and Japanese folk music, for instance. And then the last thing I have on this list is shokunin teki, which means, you know, like we all know about how there's Japanese artisans who devote their lives to something very specific. Like there's that movie Jiro Dreams of Sushi, and you know the people in that restaurant have just devoted their life to like making eggs the exact right way or something. You know, it's just like an amount of focus and devotion and work that you put into your craft that makes for some incredible genius master artisans in lots of different things, whether we're talking about pottery or we're talking about calligraphy or we're talking about dance, and when we're talking about pop music. The Japanese music scene is fueled by thousands of, you know, geniuses and incredible artists who just have devoted their life to honing their craft to an unbelievable degree. So let's jump over to YouTube now, and I'm going to show you a bunch of examples of all of these. Okay, so here's the playlist I created, and this first song that I put in the playlist is #1 on Oricon singles ranking this week. So let's listen a little bit.
どんなに時が過ぎ去っても君の顔が浮かぶだろう違う空を見上げていたって忘れないよ
Okay, I want to point out a bunch of things about this because this is so fascinating, and it is such a microcosm of a lot of the things that I just mentioned. First of all, I don't think I would be offending these women if I mentioned that none of them sing quite as well as Adele. They are singing as a group, and they're not singing with like an incredible diva kind of singing style. They're singing as a group, like a bunch of normal kind of kids singing together. They're not singing out of tune. It sounds nice, you know, it's a cool melody, it's a great song, and they're singing it well. But by the sort of like American pop standards of like you gotta be a superstar frontman, that's not what this is. The least amount of people we see on the screen at a time is 4 girls singing, and when it gets to the chorus, there's like a whole group of them like more than 20 of them all singing together and dancing together. This is what I'm talking about. This is a participatory group here, and just the visually, we're seeing not them like rolling down the road in like a Rolls Royce partying, you know, like with golden helmets on or something. We're just like seeing them hanging out in their school next to the place where you put your shoes, and we're seeing them walk around in Shikoku. Okay, and this is the next thing that's really important about this. So I mentioned that there's an idol group called AKB48, and some of you might have heard that. AKB is like you know, an airport prefix like LAX, you know, or DFW. AKB is Akihabara, which is sort of the Tokyo district of electronics and cosplay culture, and it's sort of the center of like the idol scene in Tokyo. STU stands for Setouchi, which is the ocean, the sea around the island of Shikoku. So these girls are specifically the kind of AKB48 family kind of band from the Shikoku region. And the video is connecting that identity of them to their home region of Shikoku. And there are these bands all over Japan. So people feel not only like, you know, oh, these are high school girls, I'm a high school girl, I'm kind of participating in this as a fan, and I could even be in the band. But it's also kind of specific, like your home team and stuff. I've actually performed with these women before in Shikoku, so I know these girls, and it was very exciting for me to see that they were #1 this week. Let me show you some more stuff. So here's the biggest of that idol groups, AKB48.
What's up, Japan? Can you hear me? Is life getting you down? No money, no job, too much bad news? Well, there's no reason to be down. It's time to get up. We have a hot new song that's from AKB48 to make you feel good. Koisuru fortune cookie. So dance, Japan, crazy!
So I'm going to pause this and make some comments as we go, and then I'll show you a couple more things about it. Again, it's a big group of women dancing. Musically, you can hear this mixture of styles that I was talking about. They've got like this kind of funky disco thing going, but the chord progression that they're playing is like 1950s pop music, like Earth Angel kind of chord progression. I don't know if my guitar is in tune, but okay, it's not in tune, but it's close enough for rock and roll. So, Earth Angel, will you be mine? This is like a really common chord progression from pop music in the 1950s, and that's what they're doing. So musically, the material they're using here is like 1950s old school pop music, but it's got this kind of disco funk production. So it's like a time machine taking us into the 1970s, and all these lush strings and stuff in the background. They're not only singing together, but they're all dancing together. And the dance that they're doing is specific to this song, and it's another way that we all participate. As you watch the video, what happens later in the video is they go into a bunch of rooms and invite other people to do the dance with them. So here they are at some, like, you know, high school with the musicians in there. Anyway, if you watch this video, they are dancing with people in the convenience store, with people in hostess clubs, with people on the street, and they're bringing you into the song. after they created this, it also became kind of a movement where a bunch of people made their own videos. So here's, for example, some people doing like a cover dance version of it from Yamagata-ken. There's a bunch of these videos. I think my idea here is probably coming across, and I don't need to drive it home any farther, but this is like an important part to understand about Japanese pop music, is that everybody's involved, and it's really fun that way. Here's an example of the type of student concert I was telling you about, ongakusai. So this is just somebody's cell phone footage of like their kid's music concert. They're all like this. Again, this is a very far cry from the music concerts that we did when I was in junior high and elementary school. This is like a beautiful hall, and the kids are sitting there like all dressed really nice and well rehearsed, and they're singing and playing music together, playing instruments. When you go to these, and I've been to a lot of times one of the students will go and sit at the piano and be the accompanist for the 50-person choir. And when you get to older grades, like 7th and 8th grade even, one of the students will get up and conduct. I couldn't find very much footage of Kohaku because, you know, it's NHK and it's you know, the copyright, they don't put that up for free for anybody. But I found an old one, and it's kind of cool to see the old one. This is an example of that song competition celebration that happens every New Year's, and you can just see there's so many different styles of music, and everybody's just celebrating the artists. So this guy right now is singing a style called enka. Kind of traditional Japanese big band kind of music that's based on the scales and sounds of Japanese folk music. Again, I've got this playlist that I'm going to share with you so you guys can explore this more deeply. And then, of course, karaoke. Here's like a TV show where people actually do karaoke competitions, and they're competing along with a karaoke machine that's seeing how well they sing in tune and stuff. But again, this is like, you know, you and me. We could just go to the karaoke place and start to participate in one of these competitions, like right now. You can sign up on the karaoke machine in your neighborhood. I don't want to talk too much about this specific, you know, group of cultural things and risk not being able to share some other more musical things with you. But I can't resist telling you that I'm also involved in a thing with NHK Shikoku right now for one of these kinds of songs that everybody sings. So this is a song that's the new theme song of NHK Shikoku. This is me playing this on an NHK TV show. I arranged and recorded this song, and we're performing it here with a school choir from Shikoku. And then, you know, again, we've got the whole hall singing it along with us. We have a bunch of other stars kind of singing it with us. And all around Shikoku, people are singing this song, doing their own versions of it. Including, it's become the theme song for this train line in Shikoku. And this video shows JR employees all singing the song. This is the Nico, a traditional Japanese instrument called the, well, I mean, it's from China, the arhu, but also in Japan called the Nico. So anyway, I hope you've gotten the point from everything I said so far that Japanese pop music is like a real community thing. There's a high value placed on it, and the fact that we're all participating is one of the things that makes it really fun. Now I want to shift gears and just show you a few seconds of a bunch of like artists who are really awesome and who you should check out. So here's a great artist called aimyon. I'm gonna skip kind of into the songs. Aimyon's maybe a little like, you know, like a Japanese Taylor Swift or something, but kind of more indie vibe. She's the lead singer in this group, so we're not doing idol groups right now. Here's a great artist, Yonen, Kenji Yonen.
降って止まっちゃったワンワンワン失ったつもりもないが何か足りない気分ちょっと変にハイになってふかし込んだよ人生今日だよどうかしようもう何も考えないよ銀河
So this is obviously like R&B kind of bass music, and you could think of this guy as like a kind of a more, you know, like introverted Bruno Mars or something. But also, I don't know if you're a musician and you're hearing this, but the music is quite complex. Like the chords are really rich. There's a bunch of diminished chords and chromatic chords and chords outside of the key. And if I counted all the chords in this song, there would probably be like 30 chords or so. It's opposed to, you know, Uptown Funk, which has 2 chords in it that just repeat for 5 minutes the whole way through. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute, but I just kind of wanted to show you that about Kenshi's music here. Ayaka is an example of someone who does sing like as well as Adele. I've performed with her. I played guitar on her tour last summer, but she sings beautifully. Let's check out some King Nu. Again, the music here is just like so rich and complex in terms of the chords they're playing, but it's got like this kind of funky production style. It's really a cool marriage of like kind of modern funky production values, but sort of old school expressive songwriting. In our Western pop music tradition, we have great songwriters. We've got Carole King. We got Neil Sedaka, we got Joni Mitchell, there's Barry Manilow, there's like Billy Joel, there's all these, and don't be laughing at Barry Manilow. We've got all these songwriters who just know how to use all the music in a way that makes us cry with just a chord or a note. You know, these are devices that we learned through hundreds of years of classical music. It's things that are used in Beethoven that are then used by, you know, Elton John, and it makes us cry. When we watch a movie, the music is not 2 chords. When we watch a movie, the music is taking us through lots of different harmonies and melodies that really move us. And that's why movie music does that, because it literally moves our hearts. You know, these kind of lush, orchestral, complex musical ideas. And we had a lot of that in the 70s and the 80s in American pop, but after the 90s we sort of switched mostly into a mode of making music that was mostly loop based, which is really cool and exciting because samples are cool, loops are cool, and it's awesome that like people who didn't go to music school are able to create hit songs, you know, like the level of access and that we get to now. Genius artists who maybe didn't grow up as piano prodigies or whatever is really exciting. But there's also something that we're kind of missing in our music right now, which is the complexity of devices that can really kind of like dig in at a musical level, create an emotional roller coaster for you. So King Nu is a great example of a band who's like super popular. They're just a bunch of cool dudes. But again, there's like tons of music in this song that's like really advanced, jazz kind of stuff, classical stuff. This is a band I like a lot. Just straight up kind of Brazilian jazz vibe.
Let's say, as we listen, we had one question come into the Q&A button. As we watch all these music videos, I know Japan has its own kind of music video style. Does the music videos kind of add to the popularity of Japanese pop music?
To the radio that much for songs, but just watching TV you hear songs. Like most TV shows are mini-series, like 8 weeks long or whatever, and there'll be a theme song, and that's like a hit song, and it's a new song created for that series. And on all the kind of talk shows and variety shows, music is a very important thing. So basically every day if you turn on the TV, you're hearing lots of new songs. When it comes to making music, so the artists are performing the songs live on TV constantly, and then these music videos on YouTube. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's the most awesome for us because we have access to all of them on YouTube. There's a lot of people are releasing music with really cool videos, and you can enjoy it with your eyes. Definitely. I'll show you a couple of other examples. Right now I'm just playing like 20 seconds or whatever of a song, not because I want to impress something really specific about that song, but I want to give you a sense of like all the stuff that's out there, to realize that it's not just idol groups. There's like stuff that sounds like jazz, stuff that sounds like funk, stuff that sounds like metal, stuff that sounds like gospel. I just kind of want to show you a little bit of some of the great artists. This guy, Hoshino again, incredible. This chord progression is all gospel music. Here's Chat Monchi. I like this band a lot. You know, kind of like a Green Day style girl band. Woo! I don't know if you noticed that odd time signature there. Here's a band I just love, Spitz. Unbelievable songwriting, and this guy's voice is like so beautiful. One of their old songs, they've got tons of hits, but this is one of my favorites. I love this band, Saca Nakshon. Kind of retro-ish electronic vibe. I did a cover of this song, and the lead singer retweeted my video, so, you know, I got lots of views on that. Cool if you do that. course, you know, BABYMETAL is an incredible example of the genre mixing. This is like epic legit thrash metal. Okay, so I mean, you know, this like really hardcore thrash metal, and then these girls doing this like ridiculously, like hilariously cute dance, making these kind of funny, cute sounds, and then they get to the chorus, and it's like this epic chord progression that sounds like Wagner or something. You know, I mean, it's like it's just a mix of elements that we don't see very much. I want to show you one more thing. I know we're kind of like starting to get up to the time where we should go to question and answer. I want to show you a couple more little kind of genre mixy things, and I'll do these nice and short. So here's an example of an enka singer. That kind of like Japanese folk slash big band vibe. So he's got a beautiful voice for that traditional style, and guess what his new album sounds like? The same artist. Okay, now I want to show you a couple examples of kind of synergy between Western pop and Japanese pop. Here's Eric Clapton singing this awesome song. Michael Jackson sang this also. This is not an Eric Clapton or Michael Jackson song, it's by YMO. Sakamoto Ryuichi. Hosono Haruo, you know, these are some of the people who created techno music. Kraftwerk and YMO, Yellow Magic Orchestra. 1979, man. This song, if you're ever looking for something to clean your house to, listen to some YMO. Especially like this 1979. One of the first bands that I heard from my exchange student was this band Seikimatsu, and they're wearing all this makeup and these incredible outfits, and I was like, oh, these guys are copying Kiss. And then I came to Japan and I saw Kabuki. This is like the exact outfit that that bass player was wearing. He wasn't copying Gene Simmons. There's like this synergy. Of course, Seikimatsu like has heard of Kiss and probably are kind of channeling Kiss. But there's also hundreds of years ago this vibe in Japanese musical theater. And in fact, I think somebody told me that Kiss has actually got their idea for the makeup partly influenced by Kabuki. So it's not so easy as to just say, oh, the Japanese artists are copying all the Western artists. Like some of the stuff, the Western artists are getting it from Japan, and then there's like this kind of creativity feedback loop. I'll show you two more examples of that and then I'll stop. So this is one of my favorite singers. Listen to his vocal style. So he's got this really raspy voice, and when I first heard that I was like, oh cool, so they got dudes who can do the raspy thing. go Japan. You know, in my ethnocentric like first interaction, I was like, oh, so this guy's kind of trying to sound like so and so or Tom Waits or whatever. And then again, I listened to traditional Japanese music, and you see that like this style of using your voice in a very expressive and raspy way is again hundreds of years old. And even the blues scale that we think sounds like, oh cool, they got it from the blues, check out the blues scale. So you'd be forgiven if you thought, oh, these guys are playing like a bluesy bluegrass kind of song. No, this is like hundreds of years old Japanese folk music. And it's just got like cool things in common with blues and bluegrass that makes it so that when you build up a style of music in Japan that is of course informed by the Rolling Stones and of course informed by Jimi Hendrix and Robert Johnson, but also straight up hundreds of years old Japanese folk music, all comes together to like create like this sound. So unfortunately, I didn't talk a lot about the musical devices, but I would encourage you to explore the videos, and if you have some musical background, you will notice all this stuff. They're using advanced musical devices that are not commonly used anymore in pop music in America, and they do it really effectively, and it's one of the reasons why the music, I think, moves so many hearts still, is because like it's really deep in terms of like what's inside the music. Okay, let's open it up for questions. Sorry to just ramble on so much. As you noticed, I'm like kind of in love with all this music.
Well, Dr. Capital, thank you so much. I know we can go on and on and on, and I think talk all night or talk all morning for you, since you're in Japan, about J-pop. But as we bring everyone into our webinar room, just want to let people know that you will be automatically put on mute, but just please be courteous, take your turns asking questions, and use your raise your hand, the tool to ask questions. But as we bring people in, Dr. Capital, just one quick question as we wait for folks to come in is, so it seems like Japan was almost like a pioneer in music and almost influencing Western music, right? So we had a question come in through the Q&A button. Can you talk about, I guess, the idol bands in Japan? Did they come before the kind of the boy band, girl band in the West, or was it kind of more of a natural progression where I guess each kind of region kind of had their own style and kind of grew over the years? Or can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, you know, the history of Japanese pop music is so fascinating because when did pop music start, you know, in America? Like when was Rock Around the Clock? When was Elvis? You know, when we're thinking about the roots of our pop music, we're talking about the 1950s. And what was Japan doing in the 1950s? Japan in the after World War II was, you know, occupied by the U.S. and they were basically voraciously consuming American culture and making it their own, while they were rebuilding as a society. So even from the very, very beginning, we could go back and look at Japanese artists, rockabilly artists from the 1950s. So you'll see again, you know, there's this clear influence. Obviously they are doing that because they heard Elvis, but again, the style of singing, the scales that they're using and stuff, the musical materials are also rooted in Japanese folk music. So there's just this really cool synergy there. You can, if you go back and look at the bands in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, you can see all of the roots of everything that we have now. There were group boy and girl bands back then in the 60s and stuff. Like the Jackson 5, you know, they had, what was it called? There was a band called Finger 5, I think, in Japan. But there's like girl group bands like the Candies, who were singing as a team and stuff. when you get to the 80s and the 90s, you get major bands like SMAP. You know, that's like the kind of the quintessential Japanese boy band. There's lots of Japanese boy bands, though. There's a music company called Johnny's, and they put out lots of different artists that are kind of boy bands. You know, King and Prince. Again, like, it's crazy to listen to this music because it's like 10 unbelievably handsome young men who just like look like they would be like the most popular person at school and probably a jock, and they're singing these songs that have like 50 chords in them. It's like they're singing a song that's more complicated than like a Norah Jones song or something. It's pretty fascinating. But it's so hard to answer some of these questions without just saying, go explore. Yes, it's all there. There's like lots of boy bands and idol bands, and it's a long history of that. It's been building this whole time. It's probably more popular in Japan than it is in America, because we had NSYNC and some bands like that, Boys to Men, but that for us is a little bit of like a gimmick thing that kind of has, you know, we get one or two of those kind of bands at a time, and that's enough for us. We kind of like are more focused on the diva and frontman kind of vibe of bands. But in Japan, like, we've had big bands of boys or girl bands, you know, lots of them simultaneously, to the point there's probably like, you know, I don't know, 100 nationally known bands if you include all the 48s and the Keyakizakas and like all the Johnnies. You know, it's pretty amazing. And
it seems like in Japan, all the bands, they stay put, right? They're long term. In America, you know, yeah, bands may break up, but the members of the bands in Japan may change, but they're there. It's like it's part of culture, like you said, right? So it's so interesting.
Yeah, they become kind of like family members, and the crossover between the artists and then acting in TV shows, and then of course just being in shows as variety shows, as talk show kind of panelists and stuff. It's really cool. It always amazes me how many Japanese celebrities there are that everybody knows. Like, I know a very small sliver, but yeah, it's such a huge world. I encourage you to explore.
So we'll definitely share all of the wonderful links that Dr. Capital shared with the Oricon ranking, the YouTube, the playlist that he went over today, and also Dr. Capital's very own YouTube channel, which is just wonderful. I had a chance to kind of look through things before today's event too, but people are now part of our kind of webinar room. So if you have questions, raise your hand, and now's your chance to talk directly with Dr. Capital. So if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. And looks like Xander, I saw your hand first. So if you want to unmute yourself real quick and ask your question.
I happen to know that Japanese pop music happens to be played in anime.
Yes.
Are you familiar with any of the songs that are played in anime? Like, I know Joe Inoue, who does one of the opening themes for Naruto Shippuden. Mm-hmm.
I am not an expert on anime music because I'm not super steeped in anime in general, but it is a huge part of the music scene for sure. It's its own genre, anime song, or anison is what it's called for short. But the anime shows have like theme songs and sub-theme songs and different season kind of theme songs, and the people who know about it more than I do are like way deep in it, and there's hundreds if not thousands of famous anisons that that's like the only place that you hear them. You can I've lectured at some Japanese music colleges before, and there's literally people who are majoring in anime songs, like composing music for anime. It's another kind of exciting genre because if you think about it, like if I'm just like, okay, I want you to make songs, new artist, what you're going to do is stand up in an arena and perform them with your guitar. Then we get a little bit limited to what we can kind of imagine musically. It's like, okay, something between, you know, Neil Young and Motley Crue, you know, I'll do something in there. But when it's like anime, it's like literally the visuals is unbelievably creative, inventive, surreal cartoons, and you can have the most intense music going on that has like thousands of elements in it, fantasy, whatever, like just utter freedom to do something that would never work, you know, as an arena rock song performed by a live band. But it's got this whole venue for that music making and releasing that it's just the sky's the limit with creativity. So a lot of anime songs that I've heard are really intense. Sometimes they're like crazy fast, you know, like faster than anything I've ever heard. And there's a lot of music that's like also just like very beautiful. Like the YMO composer, for example, Hosono Haruomi, he also wrote the theme song for Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, which is like a really classic Ghibli anime. And so there's like this cool crossover between these artists who like were groundbreaking musicians and also did anime songs also. So thank you for that question.
Dr. Capita, we have a question through the chat box from Shirley. So I definitely agree with her too. I'm so happy to hear about your deconstruction of J-pop. Now I have a better idea of why most current Western pop music hasn't moved me as much as the J-pop. So, but I've learned many J-pop musicians from many animation soundtracks as well. She says, I also love listening to original scores composed by the Japanese. Do you happen to know Yoko Kano, M-Flo, Bonnie Pink? What are your thoughts on their music?
I don't know those artists very well, and which is kind of like its own thing to point out. I've been studying Japanese music for 25 years. Every single time somebody asks me a question about a band, they're talking about bands I've never even heard of. Like, it's so big. There's thousands and thousands of artists, and the ones that I'm really into, I get like really into them. And I think I know a lot, but I probably know less than a sliver of 1% of the artists out there. This point, which is quite, you know, astute but maybe controversial about how Western hits haven't moved us as much in recent years, I want to say one thing about that, which is, you know, I got my doctorate degree in music back in LA around 2008-ish, and a lot of the people who were undergrads at that time have gone on and are making music right now with people who I was in school with. Bands like Knower with the drummer Lewis Cole, bands like Moonchild, which is an unbelievable neo-soul band. These groups are making music that's so creative, it blows my mind. I think right now in Western pop music, we have some of the most creative and expressive and wonderful music that we've ever had. So I don't want to say that Western pop music is not good anymore. It's still amazing, but the stuff that is hitting the charts as the mega sellers, that stuff is a different style than it was in the 80s and the 90s. You know, when you compare Adele's Hello to like a Billy Joel song, well, Adele's Hello is a captivating, unbelievable performance because of the way she sings. It's 4 chords that just go for 5 minutes, and it's the same 4 chords that we've heard in about 1,000 other songs too. If you've ever heard somebody try to cover Adele's Hello, it's the most boring 5 minutes you'll ever experience in your life. The musical materials are not what's interesting about that. The thing that's interesting is her unbelievably compelling singing, and that is enough. But what if she was singing like that and Billy Joel had written the song, you know? Or like the Doobie Brothers or Toto or Hall & Oates or all those kind of like what we call sometimes yacht rock. Like this songwriting in terms of like the way that they use chords and melodies, it's so much more expressive. So what is different about J-pop and Western pop is not that like the best artists are in Japan and in America it sucks now. It's more that the musical underpinnings is just more rich in the most high-selling J-pop stuff now than it is in Western pop. So I'm not surprised that a lot of us aren't as moved by those songs in the West. Yeah.
Thank you, Sensei. A couple more questions, and then I know we're getting close to time, but a question about karaoke. So it would seem the cultural characteristics of collectivism and individualism is seen to play some role in common day enjoyment of singing and karaoke from person to person in each society. What are your thoughts concerning this dilemma, and maybe why more value is placed in music in Japan versus the U.S.?
You know, I have plenty of observational opinion building about that I've experienced in the last 20 years. And I could talk about this for like an hour at least again, but I'll try to condense it into something that is short. Basically, you know, in America right now, we have a culture that a lot of times dismisses artists as being kind of like you know, deadbeats who don't want to get a real job. I don't know how many times when I was growing up I had this conversation with people and they asked me what I did, and I said I was a musician or I played guitar, and they would just say, but what's your real job, or what are you going to do for a living though? As if like it doesn't compute to us that you can do both. And it is hard to do both, especially in the US, you know, because we devalue music a lot in terms of the monetary value. Like when I was living in San Francisco going to graduate school, you know, I would be like, oh yeah, my band is playing at the Elbow Room, you know, on Wednesday night. It's $3. And people would be like, $3 on a Wednesday night? Can you get me on the list? Meanwhile, I'm in Japan and you'll be playing a show on a Sunday night, like the most awkward night, and it's like 40 miles away. People have to take an hour-long train ride, and it's a $30 cover. And you tell them about it, and they're like, I'll bring some friends. There's just a value that they're placing on music and musicianship in Japan that everybody just thinks it's worth something. Whereas in the US, we kind of have a little bit of and it's worse now because since you can hear music for free on YouTube and on Spotify and stuff, we have this weird computation that we do that we're like, oh, that means it has zero value. Well, does it really have zero value? Like if I asked you how much would you spend to keep your favorite song in existence? Like let's say my favorite song is Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. And somebody with a time machine was like, I'm gonna erase Kashmir from the universe, and you'll know that you had it, but you'll never remember what it sounded like, and it'll be gone forever. How much would you pay to save Kashmir? I'd probably pay maybe $300 to save Kashmir. So it has a value, but the fact that I can hear it for free on Spotify confuses a lot of people's logic, and they think, oh, that means it has zero value. It was heartbreaking for me to see like the Twitter war or whatever between David Byrne and a bunch of trolls who were saying, you know, the market has decided that what you do has zero value, so shut up and go home, deadbeat musician. Like that's just not the attitude that they have about music in Japan. In Japan, they believe that you have to be smart, you have to be dedicated, you have to like be talented to play music, and when you are a professional music, it puts you at a high rank socially, not a low rank. People are willing to pay money for it. Why? I think a lot of it has to do with the music education aspect. Like I showed, those kids are singing songs and taking it seriously from the time they're kids. Music education, music class is compulsory all the way through the 10th grade, the 9th grade, and then 10, 11, 12, some art is compulsory, Japan-wide. Everybody in Japan knows how to play music a little bit. They know how to play the recorder, and they know how to sing, and a lot of them know how to play other instruments. You're on the train here, you see tons of people with guitars. So just like the whole society has experienced music from the inside, the layperson values music. They, respect musicians. It's a wonderful place to be. It's more based in reality, actually. I think our American culture on that is pretty skewed towards like a ridiculous kind of like capitalist reduction of the value of music.
So Dr. Capital, we're getting close to time, but I got two quick questions, and we'll maybe call it a day and a morning for you. So can you talk about maybe the future of J-pop? What's kind of the outlook of pop music in Japan going to be like? Is there going to be more mixing of the genres? Is it going to continue to be kind of getting more and more popular globally? And then how can we learn more about you, Dr. Capital? Where do we find information about? We'll certainly share your YouTube channel, but I think your kind of scientific explanation about kind of the breakdown of Japanese pop music was just so fascinating. I think so many people tuning in today and watching later will definitely be interested. So let us know how we can kind of stay involved and be kind of follow you along. But can you talk about the future of pop music and how we can kind of continue learning from you in the future too?
I'm so optimistic about the future of pop music. There's just so many reasons why the sky is now the limit and above the sky is the limit. The fact that I have a recording studio like on my desk here where I also eat my cereal and that everybody else has that going on right now, like you can learn and create music without having parents who took the initiative to take you to piano lessons when you were 5. Like any of us at any age can get into that. Now, specifically about artists who are diving deep, again, like the fact that we have the internet and ways to distribute our music that completely can go all the way around record labels, and the fact that we have YouTube and stuff, like there are artists who are so creative. They're putting out music that's just like unbelievable. The Beatles, their record label said, we don't want to send you guys to America. They're not going to like you there. Your music is too complex. They were wrong. Marvin Gaye, the record label said, we don't like this What's Going On project. It's too advanced. Nobody's going to like it. They were wrong. Record companies are conservative. In Japan, there's a lot of artists who are doing stuff that's very cutting edge, and the record labels forgive some crazy things because even though of course they want to make money, they also just have an understanding that the audience wants new stuff. So one of my favorite examples, I'll just show you real quick, is this song Polyrhythm, which is, you know, a multi-million selling pop hit. It's got a beat that's in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. At the same time, there's this other beat that is sticking out kind of stronger. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 2 rhythms going on at the same time. And then the singing is polyrhythm, party did zoom, party did zoom, party did zoom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. This is an insane amount of rhythmic complexity for a multi-selling pop hit. We would put that in the category of like a 100 copies selling math rock that somebody made at college. And it's a multi-million seller in Japanese music industry that almost everybody knows that song. If I mention that song to people on the street, they're like, oh yeah, that song. Again, that's like a record label saying, all right, this is crazy, but people want something new. So there's just so much appetite for new stuff and adventurous stuff that the artists are just making incredible things. I'm so optimistic about it. It's a great time for music making right now, worldwide, but maybe especially in Japan, just because the industry is so supportive of that stuff. In terms of following me, you know, please check out my YouTube channel. That's sort of my hub for things right now. If you search for Dr. Capital, you'll find lots and lots of these videos where I take a Japanese song and I kind of deconstruct some of the musical devices that make it so awesome. And then I do a cover of the song. I have subtitles on almost all of my videos. I'm speaking Kansai Ben, so if you speak Japanese, you'll notice that. It's more like Osaka, Kyoto dialect. You know, I'm involved in a lot of things right now that are really exciting projects. Some of them, you know, I don't know if I'm even really allowed to talk about, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm doing for NHK, a lot of stuff that I'm working with some publishers now. I'm working with some with a subsidiary of Sony to do a bunch of live streams and stuff. I've got a lot of stuff going on. So if you tune in on my YouTube channel, you'll find out about things like that coming up, and I hope that you'll plug in with me. I just believe like music is a positive thing in the world. Like the more music, the better. The more musical enjoyment, the better. The more musical immersion, the better. And J-pop is such a fertile place for us to all dive in and immerse ourselves in music and enjoy music. So I'm kind of on a mission to like spread J-pop fun and also just to like increase music making as much as I can. I hope you guys will join me in my mission.
Thank you so much, Dr. Capital. We'll definitely join you in your adventure and your mission to spread J-pop. And you definitely have some new fans from Atlanta, Georgia, and the Southeast as well. But thank you again for joining us. And we definitely look forward to hopefully inviting you in person to Atlanta and here in Georgia sometime in the near future. And perhaps we can do this in person and you can give us a concert too. But
yeah, I would love that. Do a show, play a bunch of these songs.
Great, thank you. For everyone joining us, thank you very much. With Dr. Capital's permission, we will be lucky enough to share his presentation with you, kind of go into more details about the science behind J-pop and why it makes it so special and so popular. So definitely be looking out for that. We do have some events coming up next week as well. On Tuesday, we have our virtual Kayobi Kai dinner. It's our last Kayobi Kai with Mariko Shimoda, so definitely join us and enjoy your favorite Japanese food from home and then do some networking with us. Very next day, on Wednesday, we have our virtual Tsukimi Moon Viewing Gala. Speaking of music, we have kind of feature mini concerts from shamisen player, Japanese jazz musician, Japanese actually J-pop musician as well, and then also kabuki performance, and also a Japanese comedian. So that would be a lot of fun Wednesday evening. It's a free event, so definitely join us and celebrate our 40-year anniversary. We do have speeches and remarks from the governor of Georgia, Governor Brian Kemp. We also have Vanessa Ibarra from the city of Atlanta's mayor's office making remarks, and Consul General of Japan certainly too, and many others. So definitely join us for that. And then two other events coming up later this month. We have a women's series program on entrepreneurship and on sustainability and manufacturing virtual discussion. And then the big finale for this month is our virtual Japan Fest. It's the festival finale, 2 days of everything Japan, from music to dance, workshops, webinars, and we'll have a whole lot of different activities as interactive as we can make it online. So definitely join us September 26th and 27th, the last weekend of September this month. Find out more details by going on the Japan Fest website at www.japanfest.org. Again, japanfest.org. And to learn more about the Japan America Society, visit our website at www.jasgeorgia.org. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Capital. We really appreciate it. We'll have to do this again sometime very soon. And hopefully we'll get to meet in person very soon, whether here in Japan. Thank you.
Thank you.